Did you know Napoleon was actually 5'6"? The whole 5'2" thing was just conversion confusion. Here are 7 of the biggest lies told in history class. Number 7, Columbus discovered the Earth's shape. For years, kids have been told that the Europeans believed the Earth was flat, so Columbus set out on a quest to prove them wrong. How much of this was true? None of it. Yeah, 0. 2,000 years before he set out on his journey, ancient Greek mathematicians had done their research, and being the geniuses that they were, look it up, they had higher IQ than Einstein. They proved that the Earth was indeed round, not flat. Pythagoras and Aristotle both made great leaps in this discovery. Aristotle even had physical proof by noting that the shadow of the Earth on the moon was round and that all sailors approaching land came in on a curvature. Eratosthenes even had the geometry of the circumference set out. So if the Europeans believed the Earth was flat, they were not well educated. Or the Greeks were that guy who says something really funny, way too quiet for anyone but the guy next to him to hear, so the guy next to him says it louder and everyone laughs. To be fair, Columbus did have a good understanding of the Earth's shape, but it was probably due to the ancient Greeks. But then again, he did think that he could reach Asia by going west rather than hitting the not-so-new land. This leads me to my next point. Number 6, Europe discovered America. Nothing about this is true. Nothing. When asked who discovered America, you will probably say Christopher Columbus, but he did not. So, you think this is a trick question and say, oh, I remember, it was that Viking, Leif Erikson. Guess again. Leif Erikson did land in the Americas in 1000 AD, but this was still thousands of years before the discovery of the land. Think back thousands and thousands of years ago. Artifacts in America have been found that date back to 14,000 years ago. This suggests that there were settlers from that time. But who were they? Well, if you think about it, it's not that hard to figure out. Was America void of humans when Columbus landed? Absolutely not. America was claimed thousands of years before the Europeans ever landed on it. So how is it that they just took over? How was it right for them to intrude on the Native Americans' lives? For the first 300 years of European colonization in America, the population of Native Americans declined greatly due to epidemic diseases, enslavement, environmental disruptions, violence, and warfare between the Europeans and the Americans. The Native Americans particularly were susceptible to the diseases, as they lacked the immunity needed to survive them, as they had never been subjected to anything like it. It is believed anywhere from 2 million to 20 million Native Americans were there before the Europeans. But by 1890, the number had dropped to just 250,000. So who really discovered America? And who does it really belong to? But more than that, was it really built on freedom? Number 5, Einstein wasn't good in school. One of the most encouraging things told to those with learning disabilities was that Albert Einstein himself had a learning disability. That not only that, he flunked out of high school and failed 1,000 times. In 1935, Princeton rabbi showed Einstein a headline that said, "Greatest living mathematician failed in mathematics." Einstein thought it was hilarious. "I never failed in mathematics," he said, correcting the statement. "Before I was 15, I had mastered differential and integral calculus." It was also traced back that he was at the top of his class and far above the school requirements. In primary school, especially in math. By age 12, he already had a predilection for solving complicated problems in applied arithmetic. That's what his sister said. As a child, his parents got him textbooks for him to master over the summer. One summer, he decided to come up with his own way to prove the Pythagorean theory. The rumor seemed to have started when he moved, switching schools. One of his teachers believed him to be arrogant and decided to take it out on him. But in reality, he never failed a class, and the only one he got a poor score in was French. But since he had no need to speak French, does it really matter? Number 4, Washington cut down the cherry tree. "I cut down my father's cherry tree," the saying goes. But where did this story begin, and is it true? In this story, 6-year-old George Washington received a small hatchet as a gift. He then went to test it out by chopping down his father's cherry tree. His father was furious and immediately confronted George. Though Georgie knew he would be punished, he still said, "I cannot tell a lie. I did cut it with my hatchet." Rather than punish him, his father was so proud that he did not lie that he hugged him and praised him instead. But Washington never said anything of the sort. But Mason Locke Weems, an author that wrote one of the biographies, did. Weems' biography, The Life of Washington, was not meant to be a detailed play-by-play of Washington's life, but to highlight his strong points, and that was Washington's honesty. He also wanted to showcase his relationship with his father, who died when Washington was only 11. The man had two goals with his book: to make Washington appear a perfect hero, and to make money, a lot of it. And he did, but not as much as William Holmes McGuffey, who retold the stories for children in a more colorful yet professional way. You may know his books as McGuffey's Readers. They were widely popular, but included many myths. The cherry tree was simply the most retold. Number 3, the Piltdown Man. In 1912, Charles Dawson, an archaeologist, discovered the item that could prove evolution to be true. He found part of a skull in Piltdown village in Sussex, England. It was believed to be a hybrid of a man and an ape. Dawson contacted museum man Smith Woodward, who came to investigate. They eventually found a matching set of teeth, jawbone, skull fragments, and ancient tools. It was believed that these findings belonged to the same individual that lived over 500,000 years ago. They even announced the discovery to the Geological Society in 1912. Without investigation, their story was accepted. But in 1949, almost 50 years later, new dating technology was invented, which changed the dating of all prior findings. The Piltdown Man was one of them. Dr. Kenneth Oakley, a geologist at the Natural History Museum, said that the remains were actually less than 50,000 years old. This didn't make any sense. By that time, humans had already evolved into the form that they are today. That's what the geologist believed. But the fact or fiction is irrelevant. The fragments were from two different beings. One was an ape, and another was a human. This was proved when it was discovered that the teeth were filed down to appear human, while the skull was left to look like an ape. It was also proven that the bones were stained to match the gravel and era that was depicted. So not only was this a misconception, but a scientific fraud. Number 2, the first Thanksgiving. In 1621, the Wampanoag Indians and the Plymouth Pilgrims shared a great feast of turkey and mashed potatoes. The Pilgrims sailed on the Mayflower and had a good harvest in 1621, so William Bradford decided to celebrate their alliance with the Indians by sharing their harvest. The Indians brought deer, and for 3 days they all studded themselves in merry enjoyment. Every year after that, friends gathered together in celebration of the treaty, in celebration of Thanksgiving. Yeah, not so much. It wasn't until the 1800s that this whole story was imagined by Abraham Lincoln. He imagined the Indians and Pilgrims eating harmoniously as an example to those who fought in the Civil War. It was a way of saying, can't we all just get along? We're all family. It is true that the Massasoit leader made a treaty with John Carver. It said that yes, the Pilgrims could stay in America to free themselves from England. It said that they would work together and protect each other from any newcomers who tried to harm them. So how did the whole gathering thing start? It is said that the Pilgrims were celebrating the harvest by shooting their guns in the air, as was tradition. The Indians, however, mistook it for a battle and came in with their weapons. They arrived and realized the truth, but stayed just to make sure. They stayed a few days, and of course, the men went out hunting. They would bring back deer and duck, geese and fish. The Indians camped nearby, not in the Pilgrim camp, but this made the Pilgrims nervous. Everything was so new and strange for both of the parties. They would sometimes eat together, but not in a celebratory sort of way. The only reason anyone was friendly was because they were too afraid to be enemies. They ate differently, they spoke differently, they had different beliefs. So nothing was easy or convenient. They might have traded food, but the whole Thanksgiving meal was a farce. The first real Thanksgiving was in the 1800s. Number 1, Greek statues were conventional. When you think about an ancient Greek statue, you imagine a dull, gray piece of art created by a dull artiste. But In reality, they were much more interesting than at first presumed. After thousands of years of wear, tear, sun and sand, and horrendous weather, things don't always look like they once did. Well, as it turns out, the Greeks actually painted their statues. How could this be known if it was done thousands of years ago and there is actually no physical proof? It's pretty simple. And the secret is light. A technique called raking light was discovered that involved placing a lamp meticulously so that the rays are parallel with the surface of the statue. You can then see the brush strokes and similar evidence. On statues, brush strokes are invisible, even in the light. But the difference in wear and protection from erosion indicate intricate patterns on ancient Greek statues. UV light also creates an even more detailed analysis. With this, pigment can be seen in fragments, but even then, the color is not distinguished. But for thousands of years, people have studied the effect that dark colors, light colors, white, blue, and pink have on marble and similar materials. So, even if the color isn't seen to the untrained eye, under speculation, it is possible to determine. Infrared and X-ray spectroscopy can even detect what the paint was made out of. So it was possible to determine almost exactly what the statues initially looked like, and it was shocking. They were more colorful, tacky, and eccentric than a New Orleans kindergarten class. Thanks so much for watching. Any other lies that you were taught in school? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and stay tuned for more Peachy Planet. I'll see you later.